and then learning from that. So I will say that out of the negotiations that I've had from a personal perspective, that all of them have not landed on everything that I tried to negotiate. But what I can say is I left that discussion with more than what I had when I went into it. So those learnings from having those discussions have helped me in my additional discussions, and they've also helped me be able to coach and provide additional information to people that I coach. We want to talk about how you respond. And so that respond is acknowledging that the discussion and the decision that has been made, whether it is accepting, the individual says, yes, I agree, you should receive an additional 5,000, or the individual says, no, at this time our budget doesn't allow. So being able to negotiate a time when we can revisit. I understand that we weren't able to come to an agreement about a salary increase, but maybe we can talk about this in 6 months. And then being able to, if you're at a point to where the negotiation is not favorable to you, it's okay to decline a position. And how do you decline that so that it is professional, it is respectful? You may need to cross that bridge again. And so when you cross it again, you want to make sure that you still have those allies, and people will say, yeah, that was a great candidate. We just couldn't align with some expectations, but now the company is ready, or now this position is ready. And then making sure that you follow up. So whether it is, we can't, if it's internal, we can't honor the salary increase right now, but making sure that you're putting a time on your schedule when you can go back and follow up. Whether it is an offer that you've gotten and you've accepted, following up with a thank you, of gratitude, and when do I start? Clarification, this is what we discussed, so excited. When is my start date, and what does that look like? So those are the things that we want you to be prepared when you're going into this discussion, kind of walk through. We gave you some of the middle points of what the discussion should look like, and then what the end of the discussion should look like. So this is kind of a shell or a template that you can use.
No talking on mute. So Myrna.
Absolutely, we can't hear you.
No, you can't. You mentioned something interesting, that it's okay to turn down a position. I would think that if you have multiple offers or multiple jobs or something, or you have that backup plan, you can do that. But how hard is it to say, all right, this company really is not going to pay me what I'm worth? How can you have that mindset of, then I'm leaving, or I'm not going to take this job offer, when you need a job?
Yeah, I think it's tough. And one of the reasons I feel comfortable in talking about this subject matter is because I've been there, because I've been exposed to it from a personal perspective, from an entrepreneur, from a employee, and then from an HR professional, as a coach. But from a personal perspective, I did have I thought it was a pretty cool opportunity as a VP for a textile organization. And it was a private equity company going through some financial challenges. The salary was not in line with where I knew was competitive. So let's just start with competitive. And so when we look at competitiveness, you're going to look at a title, the responsibilities, a role, and then when you start looking at your worth and your value, what you have done, your performance. So it was not in line. My other position had been eliminated. So I declined that because at the end of the day, the work and the effort that I'm going to put into another individual's company and not be financially rewarded,
Mm.
there was no value. That value was not something that I was willing to accept. It was very difficult because I needed a job, but also what I needed was my integrity, and
Mhm.
I needed to think about my future. So if I took that job as an HR VP for that salary, and I'm looking to move on, or I'm looking for additional compensation as an HR VP and the salary is down here, I've already started to predict what my future is going to look like.
Okay.
So keeping not just the present in my forefront, but also thinking about the future. You know, what would my bonuses look like? What is my retirement plan going to look like? What is there's a lot of internal incentives that you get from that level. What is that going to look like in the future? What if I decide to go to another company and they're like, oh, she's on the low end. Is she really qualified to work in this role? So those are things that you have to think about. Sometimes we get excited or very emotional about the present. And that's why it's good to kind of take a step back. And for me, I'm a visual. So I usually write down what are the pros and what are the cons and how those things are going to impact me, not just now, but in the future.
Mm. It's interesting. Another question for me, I have the questions today. You talk about this in terms of employee. And
Mhm.
even when you gave your example, it was when you were going for an employee position. Talk about these key points from an entrepreneur standpoint.
From an entrepreneur, I think a lot of times we go in. So I'm in a couple different situations. I had a fitness business, and I also had a coaching business. And when we start looking at negotiating and salary, it's similar to what the cost is of me doing business with you. So what are you going to pay me in order to fulfill what you are looking for? The template is still the same. You know, I'm going to do my research. I'm going to look at what this job costs for someone else to do the work. I'm going to look at that market. So all of those components are still the same. I'm going to come in as a conversation. I'm going to come in with, you know, having, being gracious and trying to be collaborative in this dialogue. But at the end of the day, especially when you're talking about, do I decline a job? And I know from your perspective as an entrepreneur, you've turned down clients. So when you put this template together, it fits in either situation. Am I going to take on a client just to get that payment and knowing that the value is not what I'm valued at, knowing that my worth is not um, being appreciative, or I'm not getting paid for my work. I think there's also some differences in the outcome with a client. So if I take on a client now for a reduced rate, how does that impact the additional clients that I have? How does that impact the future growth? How does that impact what I am contributing when someone else doing the same amount of work is getting paid double, but I'm doing that in my value? How does that client look at the value that they're getting from me if they're paying, you know, 2 or 3 times less? So the template, the components are all the same. It it is just a reflection of what type of scenario you're in. And it is about the future. So that client that you brought in as a reduced rate recommends you to another client. That
Mm.
other client is expecting that you bring them in at that reduced rate. So, you know, we want a quick fix, or we want to resolve the situation in the moment, but those moments impact the future or they impact tomorrow. And that's a piece that we have to always keep in our heads or in our decision making. How do they reflect the future?
Mm. I really like what you're saying, and I'm making a lot of notes here. Um, I
I
love
love you. You're always making notes.
I'm always making notes. I have notebooks and stickies, and I like writing notes, to be honest, but because it sticks in my head. But I love how you said here your job versus your integrity, taking this opportunity versus your integrity. Because if we mentioned on one of the previous slides about your mindset and understanding that you are worthy of the proper
Mm.
salary or the proper rate. And then when we go to entrepreneur, I started my business in 2014. And at one point, I didn't know what to charge. And some people are just not going to pay your rates, or some people are, and some people are not. And you tell them. And of course, I was giving free consultations up front. And people would get these long consultations from me. And then when it came time to pay, they were like, okay, hold on, because they've gotten a lot from me. So I did a lot of research on my business and I took an entrepreneur curriculum, which was extremely helpful for me. And it showed me to evaluate my ideal client, because your ideal client is one that
Yes.
will pay, and where you are maybe trying to chase people just to get clients, maybe that's not the right thing, because there are people that will pay for your services. If you provide a proper value, they will pay. So you don't need to chase the people who will not.
Mm.
And because I did find that people pay for what they value. You could see a person who maybe doesn't make much, but for some reason they'll come up with something
Right.
to pay for something that's very
That
important
they
to them.
right. Right.
Exactly. If they value it, they will pay for it. And if they don't value you, it's okay, um, because then that's not your client.
Right.
It's not a proper client.
Right. And Rachel, I think that that's important for everyone who's on the call. And hopefully you guys are thinking through your own personal situation. As an entrepreneur, every client is not my client. I may not be able to meet the needs of that client. And just because they have a dollar, that dollar may not be for me.
Hmm.
So when Rachel says that she took a class to help her understand that, that's one of the things we need to do as entrepreneurs is we need to know who our customer is and who our clients are.
Yep.
And those are the clients that we need to pursue, not all over the place. The other thing that we talked about, and I think when we are looking at situations, it's easy for me to tell you how to execute something. But when it becomes very personable, I have to look at the information that I provided to you. And if I believe that it's truth, I have to follow those truths. So as a leader, one of the concepts we used to teach our upcoming leaders is head, heart, hand. And so as a leader, you have to lead in that capacity. And sometimes different parts of that concept will take a dominant role. So if you lead with your head, we're leading with talking about data and numbers and talking about absolutes. When you lead with your heart, a lot of times what that means is I lead with that compassion. I lead with possibly giving someone a pass. They made an error, so how do I coach them? How do I get them back? And then the other piece, when we talk about hands, it means I have to do the work. So sometimes I have to actually execute. When we were talking about negotiating and we're talking about our businesses, we have to lead with our head. So we have to think about what is going to bring money to that bottom line. What are some of the things that we need to eliminate? And we'll talk about this more. What do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing? What should we continue doing? So being able to lead holistic, head, heart, hand, is really not just a part of an entrepreneur, it's a part of a leader. And our salary our career, we are leaders. We are leaders no matter where you're at within an organization. You are in charge of your career. You're in charge of that salary component, which relates to your career.
I like that. I wrote that. I'm writing that down. I'm taking too many notes.
You got
We
the recording.
uh, I'm
You
recording.
have the recording.
I do, but I like my notes. So I
Mhm.
love that we are leaders in our careers, so we have to take the reins. If anyone
Yeah.
has a question, please go ahead, ask at any time. But I absolutely love this because, like you said, and I found out very quickly, we have an ideal client. People are going to pay for what they value. But as leaders of with the head, heart, and hand, we have to make sure that we may not have a leadership role in our companies, or maybe we do, or but we definitely, if we're an entrepreneur, we have a leadership role for what we do, but we also are leaders over our careers and of our salaries and many other
Absolutely.
things in the
Absolutely.
workplace and in our lives, right?
Right.
Love that.
Right. And we lead every day in a certain capacity. And sometimes we don't take that word leader and believe that that is what we're doing. But in so many things, we are the leader.
I
We
agree.
just don't associate ourselves as the leader in those aspects.
I agree. So when I look at this, and I still stay here on the entrepreneur because I was actually very pleasantly, I shouldn't say surprised, but it was pleasing to me to see how many people are converting from employee to entrepreneur. They do both, right? Everyone is not meant to be an entrepreneur. If you'd asked me 20 years ago, I would say absolutely not. And then the next thing you know, I developed into it and I love it. But there are the challenges of, say, setting your rates and people paying your rates. And you got to be confident in what you do to know that, hey, I'm worth what I'm charging, especially if you're not charging something that's very, very cheap, right?
Right.
So one thing that I wrote here as a note was being intentional about your rates, because if you can stand by them, knowing what you offer, and we talked about this at the very last one when we talked about preparation, we gave several resources of where you could find out what rates are so that you know what your rate should be and you know how to stand by it. And also just in general, valuing your business. You said it a different way as being a leader, right? Leading your business and your occupation, but valuing your business enough to say, maybe if you're not going to pay my rates, I can't work with you. But we also had another conversation, Myrna, about sometimes there are hard times. Right now,
Yeah.
people need to take the reins of their career, but maybe someone doesn't have a job. Many people were impacted by COVID. And that being the case, you may not have the money to pay for a career coach that's charging you a certain amount. You also dealt with this with your health and fitness business where
Mhm.
you had a gym, and you also advised that there were rates. Sometimes you have to cut your rates, and maybe then you grandfather somebody in. Can you speak to that a little bit more? Because even though COVID wasn't going on at that time, it's going on now. And I've done some things, creative things for people who really aren't working, but they need to get the right education and the right resources to be able to get a job, right?
Right.
And my mission is clear. I want people to be successful by being them and using their strengths. But I knew I had to pivot a little bit. Someone told me that that is very understandable as long as I'm intentional about it. Like I say, I'm gonna say reduce my rates for this amount of time, or or maybe work with a client at a discount, but be intentional. How many people can I work with at a discount? If I work
Yeah.
with too many, then I won't have a job. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
So I think that that is a lot from a personal perspective on how you run your business. Running a business, being an entrepreneur, is very different than working at an organization. When you are an entrepreneur, people come to you for answers. They stay with you because of who you are. They stay with you because of the relationship that you've built with them. So, being an entrepreneur, I operate very, very different than I do with working with an organization, because organizations have policies and they're looking at how can I be consistent across the masses. With an entrepreneur, you want to be consistent within how you treat people fairly. We had situations where rates went up from the organization perspective, from my gym's perspective. We increased our rates, let's say, in 2017. But the individuals who were with us, we opened our business in 2005. We grandfathered them, or we allowed them to stay at that entry rate, and they didn't move to the higher rate. So as inflation happens, as rent increases, as other financial responsibilities increase as an entrepreneur, we made the decision to increase our membership rate. But we also took the individuals, the members who were with us, and we allowed them to stay at their rate that they were at, and we didn't increase them. During times like this, because COVID-19 is unprecedented time, it's a new world. None of us in this lifetime have experienced it. I would say maybe some of our grandparents or great-grandparents have. Yeah. Those that are in their hundreds or whatever, they've experienced the Spanish flu. So they've experienced things similar. But us who are active and working. So some of the things I've done is I provided bundles, which include a discount for people to take advantage of my coaching. Some of the things I've done, and I've done this with Hugh, is we provided discount rates for a specific time period. If you sign up within the next 30 days or the next 3 months, we'll give you this specific rate. So I think being able to be flexible as an entrepreneur is an advantage, and it's an opportunity which, like you said, if you're too flexible, you damage your livelihood or your ability to be able to continue. But you need to do what is within your budget and what you can do. Bringing new clients in, sometimes what I've done is I've offered special discounts in order to bring them in, give them a taste or a piece of the program, and then to expand it, bring them into the regular rate. So those are things that you can do from a client. So as an entrepreneur, you're looking for business, you can take on a part of a project and say, I'll discount this project for this amount. If you're looking for B, C, and D, then once this is completed, we can negotiate that. Or you can take the whole package and negotiate it at a discount rate. So I've done things like that too.
Okay. This is helpful, very helpful. Anyone have any questions? And I love the fact that we're focusing both on entrepreneur and employee. I'm both, and you know, this is vital information.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd love to hear from the audience, just to kind of get a feel for who is an entrepreneur and possibly who has been in that situation and how they have handled it. Are you aware of any entrepreneurs that might be on the line?
I'm trying to let them identify themselves. I don't want to call anybody out like Jeremy.
All right, yeah.
Nice timing. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sure. So I would say I'm both recent entrepreneur, and I've had clients or potential clients who have challenged the rate I've said I work at, and I've always just stood my ground and said, no, my rate is blah, blah, blah. And I say, and the reason for that is, and then go into saying what my experience is and how that makes me better than the competition, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Tell us what you do, Jeremy.
Sure. So I would say for like in corporate, I I'm in data analytics. From the entrepreneur realm, what I do is I try to help small businesses automate processes with Excel and like Google Sheets. So like programming-esque kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And how has that worked for you when you've when you've stood your ground and said, you know, this is what I can offer, and that's why my rates are what they are?
Um, Almost every time it has worked in my favor. The only time it does not is when I'm working with people in different countries, but I think that's a cultural thing and like exchange rate driven.
Mm.
Hmm. I appreciate that.
But
And
you
you
see,
know,
you know what, Myrna, I want to ask Jeremy too, before you go on, don't forget your question, but
yeah,
you seem to be very confident in telling them like, no, I'm standing my ground. Is it because you are both and you are an entrepreneur and an employee? So you have a backup, or like what gives you that confidence? Because everybody doesn't have that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's 100% a consequence of me having a current job and a job that pays because there's nothing for me to lose in terms of money for this. Like um, I already had the experience in doing what I'm trying to do. So if I don't get that client, I haven't really lost anything.
Okay.
But I think I'm in a very unique situation with that currently.
No, it makes sense. So, Myrna, you had a question too, but I just wanted to, yeah, that's important because if I'm out here trying, really try my best, and I'm an entrepreneur, I don't want to be desperate and just settle because if you settle today and you know your fee should be $50 an hour and I'm settling for 20, how could I ever go up on that rate? But I
right,
need money. So,
right.
H- Hello.
hi,
Hi. So I'm gonna I'm
Michelle.
gonna I'm
Yeah,
gonna jump in on this is Michelle.
sure you can.
Um I have had I have been more entrepreneur than employee.
You sure
I've
have.
bounced back and forth into corporate America, but I find myself on the entrepreneur side more often. Um and I was contemplating the head, heart, and hand concept. I think in the entrepreneur realm, when you don't have the employee um, backup position, when you're not working, and when you're a full time entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've done there's a lot of heart. So you do lead with your head. I've always felt that if you take care of your employees or your clients, they'll take care of you. So there's a lot of compassion and there's a lot of negotiation. Um, you're you're firm on your stance, but there are, you really do have to have some flexibility from time to time. I think it's worked well for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not uh, as firm a stance
Mm-hmm.
in all situations. So
Expand
I'm
on that a little bit more, Michelle, because you don't have to give us the specific instances, only things that you feel comfortable about, but tell us more about that flexibility.
Um, well, it's a competitive environment. We know that,
Mhm,
but you're flexible sometimes to get the business.
mhm,
You're flexible sometimes with what you're doing with your employees.
mhm.
Um, as far as I don't know, I'll say things like added things like
Yeah,
time off.
yeah,
Um,
Mhm.
just I have children. If you have your heart is involved sometimes you're concerned about everybody has a life outside of work, so I mean nothing excessive, but you do or I always attempted to be flexible in those regards. Rates, you're dealing with competition markets. Sometimes you're maybe trying to get new business, entice some people to do business with you.
Mhm.
Sometimes you are maybe discounting things. I mean, not to the point that it's going to hurt your business. You
Yeah,
have to have a standard,
yeah, yeah.
but you do
Like that
have
word.
to. I think have to have some flexibility in some things. when you don't have, when that's what you're doing full time.
Yeah,
So I
I
like that.
agree.
Go
You know,
ahead.
with both with employees and clients or members, when I think about my fitness center with members, you know, just things that you may think are kind of stupid, but you are flexible because it matters to that member, and you want to keep that member. So I would have, if members come in late, they know the gym closes at 7, and you know they're there to do an hour workout. They know that it's a quarter to 7. So being flexible with staying open another 15 minutes, or doing what you can to wrap up, you know, the piece of the paperwork that you can while they are working out. So it's not something that you do all the time, but you know, I would say bend the rules, because you know them, you know their situation, and it's a more personal relationship when it is your own business. A client, you may throw in an extra whatever because you know that client needs it, and from a cost perspective, it's very minimum for you to throw it in and complete. But it provides an additional, like we call it low-hanging fruit. It is low-hanging fruit because a client is going to take that and value that, and then that the word of mouth is so important. So Michelle and Jeremy, I completely understand both.
So I really like this. I love this conversation. Thank you both. And please, everyone, be encouraged to participate because we all help each other. What I got from here, I saw that you said have a standard, but be flexible, right? And I love that standard because maybe then you set a rate that I'm not going to go under this rate. But you also said something else about with the market being competitive, you may need to do something to get that client. So maybe you say introductory rate of such and such, or such and such for the first 30 days for a certain amount of time. I like that as well. We talked about rate equivalence. Myrna, you mentioned that. Like, so in the spirit of negotiation, it might be a rate, but it might be the rate, or I can do these particular things for you as well, because they are like we talk about salary equivalents, benefits, and things like that. Maybe there's a rate equivalent. I can bring you in on this rate, but you refer me to 2 other clients. I mean, how many people have told you, hey, I'll do this for you, but give me names of 5 people, right? Something like that. Or you give them a little extra time, like, okay, so usually I charge this amount per hour, but I'll give you an hour and a half, something like that, or a different or additional. I know for me, when I do packages, I say if you do a pack of 10, then I give you 2 additional sessions, things like that. Yeah, so there's other ways that we look at this because it's negotiation. It's not one particular thing. And that's why I like today's workshop, because it's about discussion, mutual, it's negotiation. What can we do for each other? So even though times may be hard or people, but I think it still goes down to who is your ideal client? What's your ideal job? What you mentioned earlier about your value and your integrity. You know, we're not going to bend our integrity, but there are other ways that we can look at the point of negotiation than being hard-nosed, one for one, or I'm giving you this and I get nothing. It's interesting. Any other questions or feedback on this page? All right, we're going to get into the do's and don'ts of salary negotiation. Myrna, can you take us to
Sure. Yeah. So let's just talk about dues. Again, we talked about being prepared. Do not take it lightly that when you go into a conversation that you need to have your information with you and prepared. Now, again, Rachel has a recording of preparation. So if you want to purchase that information on how to get prepared, I'm sure she'll be willing to hook you up with that. You know, the other part of being prepared is making sure that we talked earlier about having that scheduled time. So you know that there is a specific time, it is a serious conversation, and it's a formal time that we schedule. But being able to come in and have that discussion in a professional manner where you're able to speak from data, you're able to speak from a personal performance perspective, you're able to speak from research about the market. That will take us to number 3, where we are having these conversations and our emotions are appropriate. So that means we're coming in with understanding the data related to why I'm asking for this increase, or I'm asking for a higher salary coming into a new organization. And it is a level that is showing excitement. It's a level that's showing appreciation. You know, I'm excited about being a part of this organization. However, it's not an emotion that is abrasive or an emotion that is aggressive. Again, because we're talking about a conversation and we're trying to align our conversation or our needs with the needs of the organization, so that the organization is getting what they need from me to perform this job, but I'm also getting what I need from a salary perspective. And again, we'll talk about this later. When we talk about salary, there are many components that impact that salary. You know, we also talked about scheduling that meeting so that it is formal. It's not, you know, by the water fountain or in the hallway or over someone's cube, or just on a Zoom call after we finish the conversation. Oh, by the way, can I get an increase? You know, it is something that we formally have scheduled. We're ready to talk about. Then when we talk about additional dues, have your data in front of you. Have those accomplishments in front of you so that it also leads to not being emotional or inappropriately emotion. You know, emotions are good, so I don't want to say don't be emotional, but having that appropriate level of emotion and being able to talk about those things. Have that list of what you are planning on, or those things that are important to you. I was going to say what you're planning on negotiating, but those things that are important. So don't just have a list because you know you can negotiate those things. Well, what are those things that are important? So if you can't increase my salary, maybe you can decrease the amount of time that I come into the office. If you look at that from a financial perspective, that is saving me, whether it's in transportation costs, parking costs, time that I'm not being productive because I'm commuting. So there's a financial value within that. Maybe it's an additional vacation time that allows you that's additional pay without work. That's additional time that you're spending with your family, or you're able to spend to build yourself up, or to get the amount of rest that you need, so when you come back, you're valued. We all need to have that rest time. So whenever you're working, and you're not taking that time off, that is not contributing to your success of being that that productive employee, whether it's generating new ideas, whether it's being able to be consistent at the performance level or improving that performance level. So there are many things that you can negotiate. It could be a sign-on bonus. I think Rachel talked earlier about sign-on bonus. You know, coming into a new organization, you could negotiate a sign-on bonus. That sign-on bonus could be broken into different parts. People don't even understand that. You know, there is negotiation, and we haven't even talked about this, Rachel. There's negotiation when there's a change within the organization where you can negotiate a stay bonus, where your position is so critical that the organization doesn't want you to leave, and you can negotiate a stay bonus, and you can break that down. We've stay or retention bonuses.
Yep.
We've
Retention.
negotiated bonuses where we paid people $50,000, and maybe it's 25 for 3 months, and then another 25 for the other 3 months. So there are types of things that you can negotiate, and that's where it's good to have a good coach or someone that you can go out to say, what are some of the other things that may be important to me that I just don't know about, that can help compensate for that salary. And then do practice good listening skills. Because if you're doing all the talking and then the leader or the HR person that's giving you the offer is not able to speak, then you're not going to be able to have a conversation. It's just you talking. So making sure that you're having that dialogue, you're listening to what they're saying, you're even repeating what they say to clarify that you are getting the right message. And then being able to ask. You know, the purpose of having this conversation is that you ask for what you are desiring. So to get into a conversation and you start talking about an increase, and then you hear the leader, you know, saying, well, you know, times are hard, blah, blah, blah. And then you kind of backpedal out, oh, well, okay. Thanks for talking to me. Have a great day. No, this was specifically scheduled for us to talk about this increase. Ask for it. The other piece is we don't always get a yes. You know, I can tell you every time I've negotiated something, I haven't always gotten 100% of what I've asked for, but what I can tell you is I've gotten more than what I had when I went into the conversation. And so I learned from that. I was gracious that, first of all, that the individual took the opportunity to listen to me and to have the conversation with me. That also gave that individual to understand where my passion was. That person knew that I'd done my research. That person knew that I understood my worth and my value. And then, depending on where we were at, do schedule that follow-up. So however that conversation ended, make sure you go back and you schedule that follow-up. If they say no, Myrna, can't give you an increase at this time, my next move is, I understand where we're at from an organization perspective. I understand what my value is. And so I appreciate it. I'm excited about what I do here. Do you think we can visit this in March? Let me come back to you in March and put that on my calendar so that in March, I'm scheduling an appointment so that we can come back to this. Or I know performance reviews are coming up. I know my merit review is coming up next month. Is that an opportunity that we can look at an additional 5% versus the normal 3%? So being able to follow up and do it intentionally so that there are no questions about, did she want more money? Well, you know, what was that conversation about? So those are the things that I think are dues that we need to just keep in mind and take on with a salary discussion. I think Rachel's going to cover the don'ts.
Yeah, but before that, of course, I'm still writing notes. So, you know what I have a question about? Say that I'm in a role or even starting a role, and I come in and I say, I need more than what they offered me. Salary, yes, but equivalent. Is it the right thing to ask for everything I need up front? Say, okay, you make an offer to me for a role, and I say, okay, well, I need my salary increased by 20%, plus I need to adjust my start time because maybe you have me working 7 to 3, but I have to drop my child off, so I have to do 8 to 4. And could I be considered for a week of vacation? Is it okay to put it out there, my package of what I need, as opposed to if they say no for the salary and you say, okay, well, can I have these other things? But I already know up front, I'm very personal. This is what I need to be successful. Is that okay?
So I would say from an HR perspective, and I've done a lot of hiring in my role. From an HR perspective, if you are coming to me with an ask, I want to know what your total ask is. I don't necessarily want a list. You know, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want, and I want, and I want. What I want to have is, or what you should bring to that individual is a conversation. So this job entails, and because this job entails, and because of the market, I would like to negotiate the following things. And so that way, when you're having that dialogue, I understand that you're looking for not just 2 weeks vacation, but you're looking for 3. My other job, and it's customary, you know, in my research, it's customary that coming in at this role, that you typically come in at 3 weeks vacation. I know you're only offering 1. So being able to have that whole conversation in one from an HR perspective is, I think, more respectful. And it also gives me a broader picture of what I need to prepare than it is for you to say, oh, thank you for the $5,000 increase, but can I get another week vacation? Then I go to the manager saying, okay, so we negotiated on 50,000, but they want, you know, another week. Then I come back to you and say, great, so we're able to offer you 50,000 and 2 weeks vacation. And then you say, oh, well, I'm wondering if I can work at home like 2 days a week. And then, you know, because it's not the HR, and sometimes it's even the manager that you're talking to. But for me as an HR professional, I'm not the one that solidifies the offer package. I am the go-between. So I'm the one who's talking to the manager to say, based on this individual value, based on the company guidelines, here's what they're asking, here's what I think we can do. What are your thoughts?
I think so. As HR, then you do also hit a feel for the person to say they don't know what they want if they keep coming back, and maybe they're just trying to, maybe they're not very organized and focused. So I like what you said, to ask for everything that you need up front, right? And it's not that something may change down the line,
Right.
but if you is very personal, you're not asking just to ask, right? You're asking because these are the things that are important to you at one time during offer or during the negotiation, because you can also be a current employee, but also need these things at the same time.
And Rachel, it's not that, you know, I think sometimes people will see what I can get to just get, but sometimes people don't actually think through what is actually happening holistic. Because remember, I said, when you negotiate your salary, that impacts your future. So it's not just now, but it impacts your future compensation in so many other different ways. And not everyone has that perspective. So from the go-between, because my role coming in as an HR professional is to get that talent for the organization so that that role can be fulfilled, so that the organization can move productively. So we found the skill, but maybe that individual just doesn't have the knowledge. I stop people because, again, it's a working relationship. And if this person is going to be a part of our organization from a development perspective, I'm going to be involved. From an employee relations perspective, I'm going to be involved. So I stop them and I'll say, Jane, you know, when we started talking, you were asking for blah, blah, blah. So let's take a step back. What are the important things that you want to talk about right now? So when I go back to amend this offer, I want to be able to go back with everything. So everyone may not have that individual that will just talk to them straight up.
Absolutely.
But as you know from our relationship, I try to be pretty transparent because I want the best for you and I want the best for our organization. And in order to do that, there are times that we can't always be transparent, but this is a time when we need to be transparent. So you feel good about coming into this role and we feel good about you coming into this role.
I like it. I like it a lot. And one thing we also talked about, I think is a good way to end on this slide, is that approach like you are negotiating for someone else. You mentioned before that um, it is, it's daunting. We can say all these things, but then you going forward and doing it, it can be hard. But I also know that we have instances that we advocate for other people. It's easy for me to tell you what to do, but then say, even when I'm doing it myself, it may be daunting. But if I take the stance that I'm negotiating on behalf, well, actually two things. One from earlier, when you say I'm the leader of my career, right? And then the second thing is approach it like I'm advocating for someone else. It gives us strength as well.
Right.
Okay. So we talked about the do's. Now let's talk about the don'ts for the proper discussion and closing. Don't be defensive. Myrna has said this so many times, and it's so true. Don't be defensive or argue during the conversation because it is to be approached as a negotiation, not a fight. So the next one is don't allow your emotions to control the meeting. Myrna mentioned that one as well. There's a certain level of emotion that you can have, not the, heightened where you're angry or even, crying or whatever, but it should be, I'm happy about this opportunity. I look forward to contributing to this. I really appreciate my job. I love my job. These are the things, but then this is what you're going after. So it's an appropriate level of emotion. Don't underestimate the importance of preparation. There's so many things that you have to do to prepare. The discussion should be, and that's why we have this discussion and closing. Preparation was its own workshop on its own. Remember, we talked about your value, your market value. Researching the position, the industry, it's worth it because it can make the difference of your salary or your rate versus they doubling that. I had a friend who was who had done her work so well. She went in and at that point, she had two offers. So she said, let me just put out this salary. And she put out something double for what she was making. And they said, okay. And because she had done, and that was a true story because she had done a lot of preparation to learn what was the industry calling for. It was a sought after position. It was also her company had a really good payout for their previous quarter, a bonus payout for their previous quarter. And she knew her skills as compared to others in that same industry. So she knew that she was highly skilled and her skill set was highly sought after. And so when she put out her feelers for a new role, she put it out to several people. And I think that really, really helped her in terms of how she approached her interview and how she approached the negotiation. So when they offered her a salary more commensurate to what they said, actually, they asked her, what is your salary requirement? And usually what did they say? People who name the first, the number loses. Whoever names the number first loses. But that's why she's felt free to say, you know what, this is what I am going after. And I said, where did you get that number from? And she said, because I knew I was underpaid in my previous company, but I went on the high end, which was literally double her salary. And they said, okay. And she said, well, she actually thought, well, maybe I said something too low. So I would say that with this preparation, but also with your rates. I know when I was finally got the right education on how to run a successful business, I went to our county. I live in Westchester County, New York. I went to Westchester County and they have a division of research. And they told me what my range was for coaching in my region and what people would pay. And it was a pretty broad range, but it's still something. And then I learned, well, where should I go in this range? And I started thinking about coaching. The industry is saturated, but I looked at what my specialty was versus what other people's specialty was. I looked at my rate of education. I looked at certifications, and then I came up with a rate and actually ran it by some people that I work with the entrepreneur program here. And I almost lowballed myself, but she says, wait a minute, you're getting constant education. Your job and your career path are actually in line with what you coach about. So you're always relevant, you're getting constant education. So let's go with this rate instead. So don't underestimate this importance. Don't just say, well, I think I'm really good, so I deserve this. But you need to underpin it with something. So don't underestimate that importance of proper preparation. Don't threaten or promise. So don't say, if I don't get a raise, I'm going to, or there's a lot of people that's seeking my expertise, because then that may backfire and they say, well, go ahead, because we actually have a few people that are willing to take this role. So don't threaten. If you say I choose not to, that's not in line with what I was thinking. And so could you consider? And if they truly say no, like one point, if you're getting other offers, like Myrna was saying before, don't be afraid to walk away. Or if you say, well, can we revisit this in 6 months? It should not be a threaten. It should not be, okay, if you do this, I promise I'll do the best job. That actually happened to me. I've been a manager for a very long time. And a person who had asked me for a raise consideration, and I said, okay, let's evaluate this. But I had asked him to do an extra assignment. He said, well, I don't feel comfortable because I'm not, you haven't told me if I can get a raise yet. I said, so are you telling me that and it was actually something that pushed up his skill set. Are you trying to tell me you're going to withhold work unless I give you a raise? And he immediately knew that he made a mistake. It's not good to promise things. It's not good to threaten. You need to feel so confident about yourself that you say, I know I deserve this. If I don't get it, hey, I need to approach this properly and professionally and ask the right way and follow up the right way. Because there's also, Myrna, you spoke about this before, when someone acts badly, then they realize maybe we don't want this particular person working for us. Maybe that we need somebody with more professionalism, emotional maturity, different things like that. I know it is emotional when it doesn't happen, and you worked hard, you deserve this raise, you deserve this raise, but there's still the proper way to handle it, because things aren't set in stone. Maybe they call you back and say, hey, we didn't think we could do it this way, but there's a creative way that we can make this happen.
Right.
I think that's the foundation of the signing bonus. We knew we could not, pay you out of this. We know the ranges are set, but we can make up for this through a proper sign-on bonuses. I've heard of some outrageous sign-on bonuses that would compensate for a lot of things. So please know there's another way to get it. By being professional works more often than it does not.
Yeah.
Myrna mentioned this before about being timid, saying, well, I guess I think. And then if they say, well, sorry, we have no money, you don't even ask for the raise, you just leave. Who takes you seriously? Then you're not really leading your career. Again, it's another side. Don't be haughty and arrogant, but don't be too timid. Understand and own what you're coming after, because the company or the client knows the same way that you're approaching that increase is the same way you're going to approach your role. Don't discuss other colleagues' situations. Now, with regard to this, when I see a lot of people in the corner like whispering, oh my gosh, Myrna makes this. Why don't I make this? I know more than she does. That doesn't make any sense. Don't do that, because there also are other situations. Like I said, I've been a manager for a long time. I had one employee that was really paid a lot of money, but he was capped out at his salary because he'd been at the company so long. So maybe his skills weren't better, but he was paid more because of the history. But he was also capped out. He would never get another raise. He was not going to get any promotional increases because he wasn't increasing his skill sets, and he didn't want to do that. But other people would pass him by. As a matter of fact, one of his peers became his boss, so that they did get the salary increase. So don't take other people's consideration, their situations into consideration. Do what was advised, which is learning your value, your skills, your market value as well. Now, there will be situations where that person may be neck and neck, maybe they have the same seniority, and they are making more money, and you find that out, okay? But when you approach your manager, it's not, I'm sorry, Myrna should not be making more money than me. It is then putting out your value proposition with your skills, your abilities, the market, if you get access to what the range is for that role, that's how it should be approached professionally, not me coming up against another person. And last but not least, don't try to minimize the situation or approach in a casual manner. Like Myrna said, schedule an official meeting. Even if they stop by your desk and say, "Hey, I saw you schedule a meeting. What's up?" No, I need to approach this. I want to be professional because I take myself seriously. I want to take my situation seriously. So be professional about it. Err on the side of professionalism. Even if, say, the boss is your friend, it's a professional situation and you need to treat it as such. Don't say, okay, I need to earn more money. I've been working hard. I've been working at this company. I haven't had a raise. Back up and do your preparation. Very important. And even if they offer you, I remember when I was young in my career, and I knew I was doing probably, oh gosh, I was so eager, 5 jobs in one. And my boss was like, "Oh, just give yourself $1,000." And I was like, okay, wait a minute. And at first, it was a long, long time ago, early in my career. That may have sounded decent, but was that right? Because like I said, I was doing 5 people's jobs, so it wasn't enough. And so we just had an offline conversation when I was saying, you know what, I do a lot of work. Is it possible I can get a raise? No, it should have been more professional to say, I want to define what my role actually is. And then let's talk about what's an equitable salary for that role. And should I be doing 5 jobs anyway? So please take yourself seriously. Any other thing you want to add here? Any other questions for this? Okay. All right. What we're going to do right now is take a 10-minute break. We've been talking for a long, long time. Take a 10-minute break. We're going to come back with some notes for the closing and then how to close the conversation and then talk about some role play. So it is almost 1:25 Eastern time. We'll come back at 1:35 and drink some water so we can get ready to talk. Thank you. Hey, Myrna. You back?
Hello.
All right, we'll start in, yeah, we'll start in 1 minute.
Okay.
We're gonna do this slide called this slide about the closing. It's a little chilly today, huh?
Yeah, I haven't been outside, but I heard it's 40, it was 41 this morning.
Yeah,
I
it's
missed my
right.
run.
Oh, how'd you miss it? Oh, okay, it's time to start. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's nice to have a little break. A lot of information. I left this meeting with a lot going on in for the break, with a lot of information going on in my head, because there's so much to this topic. I see why it was requested to have more than one session, and it shows that it's very important. So um, even for the side of motivation, very important. So we're glad that you're taking it seriously. Myrna, let's go through some of the concepts of the closing, you know, whether you get what you need or get what you've asked for. If you didn't get it, tell us more about what closing. This was something we discussed in the beginning, the first workshop, and I actually was enlightened here. Thought I had good experience with this, but that closing and how important it is was something that was enlightening for me. So can you talk a little bit more about it?
Absolutely. So I think the closing, and what I will say is the closing, or how you have that conversation and how you end that conversation, speaks a lot about you, a lot about your character, a lot about your leadership maturity. And again, I use that word leadership because you are in charge of your career. Now, not necessarily in charge of some of those things that happen in the environment. Some of those things we can't control, but based on your behavior, your input, your output can determine the end result. So being able to close, again, graciously, respectfully, professionally, is very, very important. You know, if your conversation with your boss is accepted and they say, yes, we're going to move forward, or if you've given a salary offer for a new job and they say, yes, we accept your the salary that you're requesting. A lot of times that's easy. So thank you so much for your time to discuss the increase. I'm excited about accepting this role for X amount of dollar. I like to talk about a start date. So that is kind of an easy way. You're happy, you're excited, those emotions are intact. But when you get, no, we can't, or we can't increase the salary at this time, but maybe we can do some other things. Sometimes the emotions are like up and down, but continuing in that same mode of being gracious, respectful, professional is still the appropriate standard and format that you have to follow. So again, you're going to appreciate the time, you know, to have about the additional increase. I understand that at this time you're unable to move forward with a higher salary. I am excited though that we were aligned with you increasing my vacation or whatever that is. I'd love to accept the position. Can we revisit this conversation in 6 months? So that's always an opportunity, whether it's a new position, whether it's you in your current position, whether it's you as an entrepreneur saying, hey, understand that you can't move forward with this price that I'm offering, but maybe in 6 months or maybe in 3 months, we can come back to this. So being able to, what I'm calling follow-up, being able to set a time and a tone that this is important and it's not going to go away. I am going to follow up. And it's not because I'm selfish or it's not because I feel like I'm entitled, but it's because what I'm asking is competitive and it is equitable. So keeping that in mind and asking, can we revisit this within, X number of time frame? And then again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion. So this is a framework of really just reiterating what you've asked for, but being gracious that you've had that opportunity to have that discussion, whether it's a yes or whether it's a no.
So I like this. One thing that I did write down was, ooh, can you hear me still okay?
Yes.
I hear feedback in my speaker and want to make sure that no one else can hear it. But I feel that when when we say, like oh, thank you, Jeremy. So it was okay, is it good now or just a little bit better? Because I'll put on my headset if I need to.
I can't hear it, but
Okay,
maybe they
it's
can hear
fine.
something
Okay.
different.
Good, it's fine. Okay, great. So one thing I think is that we can't underestimate just when people get what they want. Because I know you said, oh, it's easier. It is, but people still neglect to say thank you, right? Thank you so much for this.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. And so if you're getting the job, yes, thank you so much. I look forward to starting. And if you're already in the role and they give you the increase or whatever, the equivalent, and say, thank you so much. The power of thank you, it leads to other things. But I've also seen more than one time through myself and others that if it's not accepted the first time, it can come around. This has happened to me with promotions, with increases, with different opportunities that at first, yes, I'm told no, because maybe at that time it couldn't happen. But then there is a time when it actually did happen, like it comes back around. And I absolutely, I'm floored, right? So I think that, I'm sorry, I lost my presentation here. But I think that we should still, that's why you have to be gracious and professional because it can come around again.
Right.
Okay.
I always think about crossing that bridge, in that I may have to cross that bridge again. So I really, first of all, it's if you take a selfish perspective, that I always want to be treating, respectful, professional in everything that I do, because first of all, it's a reflection of me. It's a reflection of my character. But at the end of the day, I may have to cross that bridge again or come in contact with those individuals. And it could be at a totally different level. That individual could be the owner of the company that I'm seeking employment.
Exactly.
I used to work for an organization, and whenever I interviewed, and my job was just recruiting, I always thought about bringing that person in if I could work for that person. Because the reality is that I could. Their trajectory may be faster or quicker than mine. And it could be in a totally different realm to where they become my boss. So I want to make sure I could work with that person, and also the relationship that I start to build is a positive relationship. So that's one of the reasons I always think about that bridge. You never want to destroy that bridge or create a challenge of coming over that bridge without having allies or feeling that it's a strong structure.
Yeah, plus the world is so small, someone that, when you're not professional tomorrow, it'll be someone else that
Right.
knows that other person and your name will come up. So, no, it's important. Okay. So now let's look at some role play, some scenarios. These are really interesting to me because we have intimate dealings with these types of scenarios, and it's things that we've discussed in some of our previous workshops. So scenario one, asking for a salary increase been with the company for 6 years, taking on additional responsibility, and you're aware that you're being paid less than others that are doing your same role. First of all, does anybody want to volunteer for some role play, or at least to give us considerations here and how you would approach this particular situation? Go into the chat to see if anybody's chatting with me.
See if anyone's chatting.
Yeah.
I would really like to see someone take on this as something that they're anticipating doing. So someone being the employee, and then someone also being the manager. Because I think you get a different feel when you have to have the conversation come out of your mouth
Yep.
than you do when you just hear it being said.
That's a good point.
So I know, Michelle, you've had lots of dealing with your own clients, and you said you've been in and out of the professional or the corporate world. Would you volunteer to be a manager in this situation?
Yes, I can do that. Which scenario are we doing here?
We're
Can you
looking
hear
at
me?
number 1.
Can you hear me okay?
We can. Rachel,
Okay.
can you hear her?
Yes, very well.
So Michelle's going to be the manager. And then we need
Myrna,
someone to be the employee.
Myrna, in this one, why don't you be the employee?
Oh my goodness.
I know, I know.
Well, mine
I
was up.
know.
My goodness. So okay.
Exactly.
Oh,
It'll be my turn at some point, Myrna.
Okay. All right. So Michelle,
I don't want to find out I wasn't an effective manager.
manager.
Yes, please. Okay, so let's go.
So
All right.
Michelle, look at the chat and don't read out what's in the chat.
You all read the chat and I will read the scenario. So asking for a salary increase. So the employee is Myrna. She's asking her manager, Michelle, for a salary increase. She's been with the company for 6 years. She's taken on additional responsibility. So she's not just doing her role, she's doing more. And then she found out that she's being paid less than her peers. So she wants to approach her manager for a salary increase. All right.
All right. Michelle, are you ready?
I believe so. I'm trying to. Okay, tell me what I need to be doing here. Are you approaching me?
Yeah, you're the manager, and I've
Okay.
scheduled some time. So I'll say some things that'll kind of give you a
That'll prompt me. Okay.
right. And then you looked in the individual chat, right? So you know what you're.
So now maybe I don't even know. Okay, and I see
So-
it
So
here.
don't read anything out loud.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Michelle, thank you. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. I am so excited about the opportunity to be a part of this team, and you know the accomplishments that we've had over the past year has been really enormous. I know that our team has been able to increase revenue by 25% over the last quarter, and that is awesome. And I'm excited that I was able to take on the additional responsibilities when Jeff left. And I do believe that the input, as you can see from the increase in revenue, has been profitable for the company. As I look at where I'm being paid, from a market perspective, and also from my role as the lead analyst, I am asking that you consider giving me a 10% increase. you can look at my performance over the time that I've been here. And the last 3 years, I've received a rating of exceptional. My team has grown larger. I've been 110% supportive of all the organization initiative. And I know that within the marketplace, based on some of the research that I've done, that even at 10% increase, that I'm not even at the medium part of the salary range. So what I've gotten from the market is that, a low is 100,000, and then a high is like 200,000. So I am asking that you consider giving me a 10% pay increase.
Wow. Myrna, you have been with us for a while, and we love you here. We do. I'm really impressed by the work that you have put into preparation for this meeting. It sounds like you've been paying attention to what's going on in the marketplace. And I'm listening to the things that you just brought up. I'm contemplating them. It's more so that we are in an interesting time period. There's a lot going on in the world today. And we appreciate you stepping up when Jeremy left the position, not Jeremy, but John or Paul or when the other guy left.
Jeremy's still here. He's around the corner.
I realized that.
He's in cubicle number 208.
So it is, and again, we love everything you do around here. You really do step up. You have been an asset to the company the entire time you've been here. What we have going on, and I'm considering, of course, everything you've just said, is we're in a difficult place. It's a difficult time with the virus and us having to do some different things structurally. We just, Myrna, right now don't have the funds. We don't have the capacity to do any increases right now. And I feel like that might be something that, it's everything you've said is reasonable. It's just that we don't have the capacity to do that right now. And I'm sorry that we don't. I wish there was something that we could do in that regard. We just don't have it.
Michelle, so thank you. I appreciate you acknowledging the work that I've done. And I appreciate you just valuing me as a team member. I know that the company has gone through a lot of changes, and the fact that Jeff is gone is not because he volunteered to leave, but because we had to make some structural changes. So I understand that. And even with the increase, the increase in revenue that we brought to the table, I know that may not necessarily hit the bottom line, showing that it is a profit. So can you tell me, because I only see a small world, I don't see the larger picture based on my position, can you tell me what the leadership team has been talking about in relationship to supporting employees like me that have been here, and our commitment to the organization, and not only our commitment, but you've been able to see the performance and our value. Are there conversations going on in relationship to how we will be rewarded in the near future, or when those increases will take place?
Well, that's a very good question. And as a matter of fact, the meeting we had last week, and you have mentioned some of the things that we have been able to get some additional revenue in. What we have been looking at is, well, actually, and you'll know this before some others, is tapping into Southeast Asia markets. We're trying to see if we're able to, because we have so much going on here, perhaps tap into some new revenue streams for the company. We are mindful of pay increases because we'd like to share. We'd like to create some opportunities where you're able to perhaps share, do some type of profit sharing with the company. So we have discussions going on, and we're mindful of, and it's actually not just yourself. There are one or two other employees we'd like to keep along and bring along for the ride. So we are having discussions in the background about ways that we may be able to provide some additional benefit or compensation. But because we have, again, what's going on in the world, we're trying to think outside of the box, be creative, and see if we can get some additional streams of revenue and perhaps create some more opportunities for you all here.
Wow, I'm really excited about that. You know, a couple of things that I'm excited about. One is that you're looking at other streams of revenue, because I do understand that the customer base over, you know, from a North America perspective has decreased, and we don't anticipate that in improving, you know, in this quarter, but those additional streams will actually be beneficial to the organization. And the other thing that I'm appreciative is that you are looking at the people perspective and looking at ways to help compensate us for our contribution. So since these conversations are happening, I'm you know, extremely excited. Is there the opportunity that maybe next month you and I can sit down and talk about the increase or what has been resolved from a leadership perspective? Or do you think that you'll have an answer prior to 30 days?
Well, to be honest with you, now I would love to speak with you again in 30 days because I could, you know, we can discuss updates or how we're progressing. To be honest, I do not see the plan coming together in that period of time, that shorter period of time. However, I will promise you that we can discuss updates, and as things progress, I will keep you in the loop. And then in a timely manner, and I understand your concern, we can revisit this. I don't want to say 30 days because, you know, we're just starting the process of tapping into some new markets. But you have brought this to my attention. I am marking this down on my calendar as we're speaking now, so that we can have some additional conversations, but it's very much now on my radar.
Absolutely.
So I will keep you engaged. If that's fair for you, we can proceed that way.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. That's fair. So I will put down on my calendar, I'll send an invite so that we can at least have an update. I think that's a great opportunity for me to show you the work that I've done from now up until that time, so you can really have a detailed perspective of my engagement. But I also would like to put a thought in your head that going back to senior leadership, or as the leadership team discusses, that there's also possibility of some retention bonuses. I know you mentioned a couple of other people that you wanted to make sure that they came along the ride. And so those may be some other options that you might consider. They don't land on the salary, so you're not carrying that salary year after year and building on that salary. And those retention bonuses are like a one-time payout. So that may be another option that senior leadership may look at. And I'm going to send an invite for 30 days out. And even if it's just an update on what I've been doing, I think that that is good conversation for us to just stay connected. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I thank you for having this conversation with me.
I appreciate you coming in, Myrna, and that's a great idea, your retention bonus idea. We will entertain that. I will make sure that is put on the table as well.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Wow, that's a great manager.
No, you're a great employee, but she's a great manager as well. But what
Wow.
I liked about this, I took some notes that you definitely were the leader of your role because you were very serious and you did your preparation because you were talking about the only reference to another associate, Jeff/Jeremy/Paul, was that you had, that you said you did his work, like you had taken his workload. And so, and he also had left because of not of his own volition. So you wanted to make sure that that was acknowledged and the work that you've been doing, and you had the right pride in the company. And then I love the fact that when Michelle was very receptive to you, but said that you didn't have anything, you didn't just cut her off. You let her explain it. And then after you let her explain it, you came back and said, you talked about other opportunities. And actually, I shouldn't be saying all this. Let me get feedback from the group because I got so excited. I stopped. I love this role play, and I love both of your roles and how you both approached it. Can somebody else chime in and say what you liked about this, what went well, what you could take from this conversation? We got Doris, Ellen, Dion, Barbara. Come on, let's hear from you.
You calling people out.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to ask because they're on the phone.
Hi, Rachel. This is Barbara.
Hey, Barbara.
So I want to just concur with something that you had offered.
Mhm.
I appreciated how she was able to maintain a positive attitude throughout the conversation, even when it was clear that she wasn't going to get that raise. She continued, she pushed forward, and she did so in a manner where it wasn't, I just want to say she was persistent. She was persistent in
That's
that
a good
she
word.
wanted to continue the conversation at a future date. So even though the manager wasn't promising anything, at some point the manager had to give in and say, you know what, we will consider entertaining that idea. So I appreciated that.
Thank you. She said it was clear she was not going to get her raise. No, because she wasn't, and she said no, right? And but you kept it going. She said, "I'll put it on my
You
calendar." You were
can't.
like, "No, I'll put I'll put it on my calendar. I'll send an invite."
Right. She
So,
said,
Rachel?
well, I'll keep in touch with you. I'm like, I'll send you an invite. But you know what? I have learned through experience, and I am a good observer. I don't have to walk through a horror story to know that it's a horror story. If I see you in that story, I know it's a horror story. So I don't have to walk in it. So I have learned through experience how people have responded and the interaction that you get from senior leadership. And I told the story on, I think, our last conversation, where we had a chef that we had extended an offer to, and she was outraged with the salary offer. And so her comeback was cussing. So I've learned I don't want this manager to feel defensive, because that's not going to get us to what I want. And so it's a selfish perspective. I want the manager to feel good. And I probably should have said some other positive things about the manager. Like, your leadership has really helped me achieve blah, blah, blah. But that chef talked negative about the company, said things that, we were disrespectful to offer her the salary and whatever. So at the end of the day, we rescinded the offer. And then she did not just have the verbal conversation with me, but she took it upon herself to send an email to the SVP, to the head of the department, to other people. So now they have a perspective of who this individual is. And by looking at that individual's character, what that told me, especially a chef, you are going to be in multiple intense situations. There are going to be times when you're going to have problems with the kitchen going down, with overflow of customers, guests waiting. And if you are going to explode when we're just having this salary conversation, how are you going to perform in those situations? And how is that going to impact our business? How is that going to impact your relationship with employees? So how is that going to impact staffing?
Yeah.
So I have had an opportunity to learn through other people's mistakes what doesn't work well.
Absolutely. I think I heard Dion's voice as well. Dion?
Yeah, I actually was just going to piggyback on what Barbara was saying, in that Myrna was very much prepared. It was almost as if she played devil's advocate for herself. And I actually found myself in a similar situation a few years ago where I waited. I made every mistake in the book. I waited to performance review time, which is only once a year, to have this conversation with my boss. Not about an increase in my salary, but like, hey, this is my my level, and I want to get promoted to the next level. What do I need to do? And looking back, I probably should have said, well, here's what I'm doing, and I see people at this up level doing that. So what else do I need to do? Or let's make this happen, or just something a little bit different. If I had prepared myself for his, let me see. And, I don't know. If I had just prepared myself, maybe play devil's advocate or something, I think that I would have had a better outcome.
I like what you said, Dion, because, and I was thinking while they were doing the role play from both sides, I would have loved to gotten this information years and years, many years ago when I entered the workforce before I bombed several salary negotiations, because you can see the side of, you're right, being very prepared, sticking with the facts and saying, I have done these things. And even when she said, I'm going to come to in 30 days, she says, and in that time, I'm going to give you what I've done so that you can see what I've done up to this point. How, yes, Michelle said she was going to schedule a meeting, or she was going to put in her note in her book. Myrna said, well, I'll schedule the meeting, right? So you're right. She was very assertive, and determined, but she also brought in a level of preparedness that I don't think that everybody knows they should do. And she also in the beginning talked about the market value as well as her value as well.
Hi, this is Doris.
Hi, Doris.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I like that. Not only did she go in prepared, there's two things that I want to bring up. She went in prepared, and she talked about how the revenue had come in, but then when the manager said, well, it's not really what it looks like, she acknowledged that I only have a narrow view, not the global view. So she gave that acknowledgement to the manager that maybe I don't know everything. And the second thing I liked was that she had alternatives. Okay, you can't do this, but have you thought about this? And you can't do that, but have you thought about, retention? So she had alternatives as opposed to just one narrow viewpoint.
Absolutely.
So those are the things I took away.
Thank you so much. Yes, she did. Covered it all. Myrna, you were the perfect employee negotiator.
That was hard. Even probably for Michelle. I think it was a difficult scenario, because when we have employees that have performed well, you do want to reward them.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're part of that leadership team, or depending on where you're at from the management level, you may not always have the authority to do what you want to do. You have to get authorization. So I think the situation is hard from the employee, and that's why you have to do your research, and you have to, I love what you said, Deon, you have to play that devil advocate. If they say yes, it's easy, but if they say no, where do I go? And how do I let them know that this is valuable, that I am a valuable person? How do I let them reflect on my contribution? Because I'm not just valuable because I stuck around for 6 years, but here's what this person has done.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I make it so that if they weren't even considering, because sometimes managers miss, I can tell you from an HR perspective, I've gone back to managers to say, how did you miss this? How did we miss this? Because if I'm your HR representative, I should have been going through people on your team and looking at their performances, and I should have been coaching you. How did we miss this? So from that perspective, helping her understand that here's what I've been doing and here's what I'm going to continue to do. Since you said no, doesn't mean I'm like, okay, I'm not going to work anymore. But I'm going to continue to work at the same level of enthusiasm so that you can see I'm all in. And I think those are things that help leaders go back and fight when they don't have the total control. So they go back and they position you to the other leaders that you may not be visible to.
Michelle, let's hear from you. As being the manager, can you evaluate Myrna's how Myrna carried over to you? You have been a manager, you're an entrepreneur, you have much experience. I wish I could have seen your face during some of these questions because I could imagine it. Maybe I imagined mine, but can you give us some feedback on how you perceived Myrna to be?
Oh, she was wonderful. I mean, how could you dispute what she was saying, right?
Mhm.
Clearly, she had done more homework than I had. And actually, she made me aware of things I may not have been paying attention to. Just as an individual, you do have an overview of what everybody's doing, but sometimes the details are not crisp, and she made them crisp. She had suggestions. It would be hard to refuse her in any regard. Something, you would feel the pressure to come up with something that's comparable, or at least make the effort. So you would not be able to just say no to her. So she was very persistent, is a good word. Tenacious is a good word.
Yeah.
So I appreciated those things. And I mean, I started with, I was impressed.
Yes, you did. Yes, you
That was
did.
a true statement. So anyone coming to you with any conversation or any preparation in that manner, you would have to address them directly. So, there's not room for, you can't ease out of that conversation. So that was, so she did, she was wonderful. I mean, I would have to go in and fight and figure out something. We have to do something. So,
Yes.
so that, I think she did a wonderful job.
I heard, thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you so much for that role play. And I know, Myrna, you didn't plan to be part of the role play, but thank you for being gracious. And I think it taught us all a very good lesson. And you did it from the side of your experience, because you knew how to be emotionally intelligent, professional, and just really leading and owning your career. I remember a phrase when I first heard about succession planning, the succession planning concept and process, where you evaluate the promotional opportunities for the employees that you choose that are high potentials, right? And I remember putting their pictures and their names on a big screen and then saying vulnerable. And we had to fill out different profiles for our people. And it asked, were they vulnerable? The first time I heard that word, I said, what does this mean in context to this? Those are the people, if they're vulnerable, they would leave if they did not get promotional opportunities. I've never forgotten that, because the way that they would say, Rachel, is this person vulnerable? Because do you think they're going to leave? And we would actually evaluate that person to say, okay, well, we have to do something to feed their career ambition or they will leave us. But some people, they knew they were not going anywhere. That completely changed the way that I viewed my career. I started to really advocate for myself after that, because I never wanted my company to feel so confident in me being loyal without them doing anything for me, that they knew it and they would evaluate me as such. To me, that was embarrassing. And so I love the way that we did role play today, because when they know that you are interested in your career, they know you're serious about your career. I love the way that when Michelle said no, in essence, she said no, the conversation didn't stop. It kept on with many things. And a lot of people that I know, me in the past, would have left at that point. We really don't have the funds. Oh, well, thank you, or can I come back in 6 months? That wasn't the case. They continued to say, well, are there any programs that you do for people that you value that you can? And then can we look at this? And can we look at that? And can I call you back then? And when I come back, can I do XYZ to let you know? And have you considered, I mean, it was just on. And it lets me know what that let Michelle know and her company that Myrna is vulnerable. If she doesn't get an opportunity, she knows her value and she will find something else that would pay her, because she's so low in the salary range and she knows that. So she knows what she can offer to another department, another company, another something. This was an ideal scenario. Any other questions or comments about that scenario?
One of the questions I have for the group is, what do you think could have been more effective?
On either side, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna throw in. This is Michelle. There is a consideration with any employer. You invest quite a bit of money and resource into human capital.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't necessarily pointed out. It may be implied, but you already have quite a bit invested in someone to, you want to consider that before you let them willy-nilly walk out the door. So it could somehow be part of the discussion, but there's a reminder there that you've invested quite a bit in this person for them to be here. They know your business. They know your business model. They know how, your operation. So, do you even want to consider investing in someone else? So I don't know. I think that's something that could be somehow included in the discussion. Maybe not directly, but certainly indirectly.
And I think, Michelle, as a manager, so those are the discussions that if you came back to me and said, I think we have missed some things here. And although we've restructured, and this should happen when there's a restructure. The leadership team should be talking to HR, because there's a restructuring of maybe eliminating positions and reassigning tasks. But in that restructuring, just like Rachel said, who's vulnerable? Who do we need to keep on this team so that whatever we can finish the project, so that we can make it through Q4 or whatever? So are there retention bonuses? If we're releasing people, do we release them tomorrow do we release them 30 days and we pay them so that during that 30 days, they don't start looking? So all of that should have already been discussed, but many organizations don't have those complete conversations. So as a leader, just like you just articulated, going back and having the discussion, look, this person has been with us for X amount of time. This person has a proven track record of success. I don't want to lose this person. I know that we're not giving increases, but what is it that we can do, you know, to make sure that we retain? So those are the discussions that should be having from that leadership perspective.
It should be, but I also know that all leaders are not created equal. We know we've all dealt with managers that are not on the same level. We have good ones, we have a good few, and then we have a few that they were promoted without maybe the leadership skills, maybe because they were good at their job. And so we need to help. We need to help them to do other considerations, but in the right way, right? To make sure our research is done. And like, I loved how when the question that really got me that I wrote down was, is the company doing something for additional for employees that they wish to keep, that for say high potentials or people who, you know, wish to have career opportunities, things like that, because maybe something, and Michelle even said, well, that's a good question. You know, it is, because there, you may need to help your manager along to think of other things. We talked about the standard with bonus and 401k, things like that, and vacation and childcare. Maybe they can do those things, or maybe maybe there's a leadership program that you can be in to put you on a trajectory. I like what Dion said, this will get you to the next level in your career. You know, other things that will actually equate to an increase in salary, but they're just not writing a check for an increase in salary today, but they're giving you other things. Staying on your boss, because I find that, and I'm actually mentoring a lady at my company now where her boss is like just talking to her at mid-year and end of year review time. And I said, well, have you gotten on his calendar? Don't wait for him. Get on his calendar. So now she has monthly reviews with him, because there's a lot that she needs that she couldn't do on her own, and left her own devices. She may not do well in her career and may not get the increases and opportunities that she needs, but then you'll have to bring your manager up to a different level if it's worth it to you.
Right.
And I like too, because Myrna asked in the beginning, Michelle asked the question, did Myrna schedule this meeting? Yes, because it's up to you. Because if you wait on somebody else to do it, it might not get done. And if you wait on someone else to notice your work, it may not get done. You'll have to do it yourself. But I will guarantee that it's worth it. Even if it's not with that person, it's worth it for your career trajectory. Like I was saying, negotiate on a regular basis. Step up to certain things to lead conversations on a regular basis, because it will get you in that mindset to do it more and more. So we're almost out of time. Here's what I will guarantee for you. We have some more scenarios we have here, but I don't want to leave you hanging. We're going to put together, Myrna and I will put together some best practices. We talked about a lot today, but for scenarios 2 and 4, which are about entrepreneurs, and scenario 3, which is an incoming employee, we've talked about a lot, but I want to be thorough. So we'll put together some best practices, and I'll email the audience on those things. We were assessing the role play for today. Anybody have any other questions for us? Let me go to the chat to see. Okay, my chat's being blocked by us. Okay, I see.
I don't see anything.
Okay. Contacting us, you see my information here. Change Your Story. .today is my website, and my email rgatling at changeyourstory.today. Myrna, here's her details and her email address as well. I'll leave this up for a second, because her website, her email address is not the easy one. Myrna, what does this stand for? Oh, it's Myrna backwards. Oh my gosh. I've been emailing you forever, and I never figured it out until now. I'm like, A-M.
You're
okay.
so clever.
Myrna back. I'm so low.
I completely support Rachel's business when she talks about Change Your Story, because my organization is called I Am. And it's just amazing how like-minded people connect. And the fact that she's saying, you don't change who you are, you change your story.
Mhm.
And that is exactly where I'm at. I am. And you are who you are. You have unique and you have awesome skills. But you may need to refine those skills. And then where you're not strong, find those individuals or find the tools that will help to make you holistic. So I have a coaching business, and my focus is more on the health perspective, because I believe that if you are healthy all the way around, so mentally, physically, that it helps you through your life and through your career. So we definitely are on the same wavelength, and we're very, very similar, although we're very different. When we talk about clients are unique to her and clients are unique to me, there's definitely a different type of client group that we communicate, and there's some overlap, but change your story, don't change who you are.
Mhm.
If you take away anything, it is making yourself better, but not changing or to be somebody else.
Yes, we're unique for a purpose. Thank you, Myrna. And we do complement each other. That's how I think about it. What's next? Stay on my website. I'll also, Werner, I know you're getting yours together. Let us know what you're doing for sure. And I also am planning my next event for October and November, and actually December as well. You'll get one-on-one coaching opportunities discounted through December 31st. So reach out to us. And I am launching a post-event survey. So as soon as we get off today, please fill out the survey, because it helps me to bring relevant content to you for your needs. This is how it led to a trilogy of salary negotiation. I absolutely love this role play. And I love the information that I'm getting. Like I said, I wish I had had this so long ago in my career, but that's okay. It's never too late. I'm still negotiating things now. And that is our program for today. Anyone else, anybody have any other questions or comments for us? Okay. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. And I look forward to providing more workshops and interactions for you in the future. Take care.
Thank you.